man. Welcome back, every person. See, I am inclusive. In fact, little people. What has been going on? Well, for me... Oh man, it's coming apart. Anyway, for me, now a fuck ton has been going on. So I've been working on the next episode of the Forgotten series. And I kind of got really hung up on it a little bit because it's going to be so extensive. It's just too mind-blowing of a leap that we're going to take out of episode 6. You know what I mean? That to go into 7 with my idea, it would be just too jarring. I'd be like, I don't fucking know. So I came up with an idea, and it's just going to be like episode 6. This episode is like its own little encapsulated story of what Harrius means and what it is to be Harrius. Episode 7 will go back into the story of Dove and Thies and all that stuff. Because you'll see in the future, it gets really fucking strange. We're talking dimensional. Harrius is a being from another dimension. And he was created. And what he stands for and all that stuff. And it'll tell you the story of how Thies and everybody can be, what the Titans really are. It wraps it all up into a little bow. But it's going to be kind of hard to understand. I have no illusions that I'm thinking, oh, people will just get this. Like, it will be very difficult to follow. So, no big deal, whatever. But that's the story that I have to write. According to the muses, you know. So, that's kind of in the works right now. And it's been just damn difficult to... I don't know how to explain it, but just to lay it out, like, what's the story got to be, and what are we doing? It's very difficult, at least for how I'm approaching it, and the story, and the depth of my story. It's so difficult to really ponder how to make this all happen. I mean... there's too many layers to this idea, and I made a video some time ago about, I don't remember what I called it, but it was the idea of the fractal nature of the creator. It was the idea of dimensional kind of transcendence, of what it is for a god and what that is seen at from a higher level than that, and then a higher level from that. And I use it as an archetype of how my story works. So in some way, what I'm trying to say, if you watch that old video, and I come here now and I'll say, the story is merely just one event on one dimension, when there's multiple before it and multiple after it. You'll see the events play out in the story, for instance, of Thies and Dove, which takes place in the middle of the entire epic story. And that'll come and go, and all of a sudden we're in a new dimension. And you're just like, what about all that stuff? Like, well, it does kind of matter eventually, but for a few thousand years it really doesn't. It's just... we're in the chaos of creating a new dimension and a new set of rules and a new set of stories that are formed from the original dimension, but the purpose that they serve doesn't come back until my hero in my story is Eris is born. It's really complex like that. It's hard for me to sit and tell you what that means. Suffice to say, it's a dimensional set of stories that exist in their own place and time. They're all connected, but in a very esoteric, strange way that will lead to my own personal interpretation of what a prophet is, what a god is, and what is it to be ascended into the kingdom of heaven. It's a very interesting perspective that I'm putting on it. To put it simply, put yourself in a Christian mindset and say, the kingdom of heaven. The place ever after, you know, and Jesus will come back. Imagine that's just a vessel that was created by a higher being, and it's just a synthetic creation that resembles God, because when it transcends to the next realm, people come off the spaceship, so to say, of this kingdom of heaven, and they're born in a new realm. Eventually, when they look back at that, they no longer see a spaceship, they'll see a heaven, they'll see a God. Because their mythology starts to be born. it's just a big play on that, and that's the entirety of the Forgotten series. We're just in the works of finally laying it out for you. You know, you don't have any context to any of this stuff, so the stories will start to quietly serve as the idea form of this mythology that I'm creating. It's been very, very intensive for me because, you know, sitting there trying to think like, well, if there's a dimension in the previous dimension, what would that mean the God is? You know, all this weird esoteric thought stuff has just been like a lot of work. And the way that I approach how to examine it is in its own way very strange and esoteric, transcendent and fractal. I recorded myself going through notes that I took 10 plus years ago. I listen to that recording and take notes of me taking notes. And then I record another recording listening to the man that's reading from the other one, so we're already 3 people in, which is just all me. And I'm listening to myself, reading myself to take even further notes. And that's how I've approached creating this book. It's really fucking strange, but that's the only way I know how to do it because that's part of the theme. The theme is there's always someone higher than you serving a different purpose. I wrote this back in 2015, this journal here. I'm reading it out loud. I hit end on the recording. I call it a day. Then I'll listen to that recording and take notes of myself reading it. And then I call it a day. Then I record another recording of that recording of me talking over it, like my own kind of, what is that called in a movie, you know, where they're talking about it. Like this scene, this is what we did, and blah, blah, blah. Like I'm doing that over it, so it's already 3 levels deep, and it might go more. It's, in some sense, what it does is it recreates the mind in an external way. So instead of sitting here doing mental, external, I'm taking the mind out like Dove and placing it on the table and saying, instead of thinking in our head, why don't we think out loud? And in some sense, I'm using technology. It's like a hybrid of my thoughts and recording device, which is a modern technological advancement, and I'm creating a synthetic mind. It's really weird, like, to think of it in that way. To you, you'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? And I could totally understand that. But that's kind of why it takes me a long time per episode and why it's just so much work. I'm going about it in a very personal way. One that I don't expect anyone to ever understand. But it's born out of something that we did. You know, if you watch a detective movie of some descript, whether it's even like X-Files, right? You see 2 things that they do. Right? And probably modern, I don't know, I don't watch modern shows, but they either put it down on their old school computer, like you think of, was it Scully? Was that her name? The chick in X-Files. She would always go on her computer and type up her day and thoughts and stuff. Sometimes in old shows you see a person with a little tape recorder and they say, subject number 32, test done, blah, 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 right? Like in a science-y kind of show. You're recording it because you have to listen back to yourself. That's the whole fucking point of it. It's just a play on that, right? Or that's what journaling always was. You write down before the advent of a tape recorder or a reel-to-reel, you would just write down and then blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And you're basically taking your thoughts and putting them in the material or the physical world. I'm just doing that in a new way, where it's like, what if I could record my voice, listen to it, listen to myself listening to the voice, so that person can also add on to what he didn't say. And then while he's adding on, I can listen even higher than that and go, oh, together these 2 created what I'm trying to do. That's all it really is. You know, it's nothing crazy. It's just, that's what it is, you know? I just enjoy the shit out of it. I really enjoy the weird fractal element of my past and my present coming together to create a future. It's kind of cool in that way. Because sometimes when you start doing things that are much larger than yourself, You can't contain it in your head. You can to a degree, but once it gets so large, you kind of have to talk it out. You have to, in some sense, birth the creation act into the physical world and somehow place it back in you, your mind. And you can work those in tandem to create whatever you're doing. I'm sure people that have invented technology on some level has done something to this degree, because it takes so much effort and trial and error and all this stuff to pull it forward from the imaginary realm of your fucking mind. So that's what's been kind of holding us up in the idea of this mythology. But I must say, the episode that will be coming, so it'll be kind of like, think of it like episode 6.5. I haven't given a proper name yet, but that's what it'll be. It'll just be like, hey, I know episode 6 ended on this weird cliffhanger of him discovering he's a creator, and that guy's name is Harius. Let me just tell you how that happened before we get into the next part of the story. Why don't I just kind of give you some preamble of what that all was. And that's what the next episode is going to serve as. I just got to kind of figure out how I'm exactly going to tell it, because it's very intricate and very... If you're not paying attention, you'll lose it. It's just so different than what was already happening. It takes a left fucking turn. And I have to somehow find a way to go back to the story. Just imagine it like this. Imagine you're reading Genesis, and all of a sudden the first Genesis ends, you think, oh, we're going to go to the next chapter. And all of a sudden it's like, hold on, let me tell you how God came to be, actually. Let me tell you how God, his original dwelling real quick, and tell you about what really happened. And then we'll go back into the next chapter, or whatever it is. Exodus, I don't know. That's basically what I'm doing. I'm taking a side road to a new idea, something I never really explored, and now it's always vague. It was always a vague concept in my head, It's just very fun for me to really explore all this stuff and to finally put it out there for anyone to see if they would like to see it. I don't expect a huge turnout, but it's just, I don't know how to explain it, man. It's really good. It's really good. I'm very, very proud of it. And that's kind of where we are so far in the day, in the journey, in the day in the life of writing this mythology. Other than that, I've only just been reading Parsifal, and getting into more Arthurian legends and stuff, and in my mind quietly asking myself, how can we take Arthurian legends? What does it really mean? What is that saying? The mythology? And how can we adapt it to what we're doing? And I have some cool ideas. I'm really trying to ponder, how do I connect all that? Because seemingly it might be kind of difficult. So I don't necessarily have the clues all laid out together yet. And the key word there is yet. It's been a lot, man. It really has been. The story of Dove, I never really realized how much of a vessel this story is. How much of a transcendent process it's become. Because, I would have thought it's just a fun little story we're making, and we're kind of thinking about a story. I don't know. Not more thought than that, honestly. It's just a story. But I didn't really realize just the esoteric depths that are inside of this, and what I've been trying to do all along is still working, and that's to create my own mythology, my own Bible, my own Arthurian myth, my own Sumerian creation story, or Indian, the Bhagavad Gita, whatever they call it. Can I make my own? Can I do my own story? That's all it is. Because at the end of the day, what's inside of those stories is something that I was reacquainting myself with on the terms of mythology. And I was thinking to myself, what exactly is mythology? And as I was listening to Joseph Campbell, I started wondering, like, it seems like mythology is, I have a set of realizations that I've come to in this world that can help progress, lift man up, evolutionary wise of mind, or guide mankind on a sense of being a better person. And I'm going about it by telling you in a story, something, self-realization into a story. That in turn becomes a guiding force for people for a long time to come. So in some sense, mythology is the progression of mankind. It is a pulling from the imaginary world and placing it into the physical world inside of, let's say, books for this instance, so that one day someone can read them and discover that the idea of the mythology is another person's mind captured and placed in the physical world, so that you can explore it for yourself and pull from it some sort of human truth, some sort of experience that person had gained in order to teach you something. That's all it really stands for, and at least in my interpretation of it thus far. And so framing that in my mind, it's made the process a lot easier, and where I can trust myself. Because trust me, when I start getting into this weird fractal God stuff, or I get into this whole, like, God was created by a God who was created by a God, and these are representations of dimensions, and dimensions are realms of existence that you can go to, and all this stuff I'm doing, I was very nervous because I'm like, it's so stupid and weird. I don't know. I don't think either people won't take it seriously, they'll think it's just fantasy, or they'll find it to be absolutely ridiculous and they're like, well, where's the proof? You know, that logical kind of stuff. So it kind of, those two things kind of scared me. Like, I don't know if I should tell this. But I realized I can be the expert of my own belief system, my own experience, and my own understanding. If I start explaining what I think this world is, there's not going to be many people that agree with it. Some people will be upset by it, other people will just be like, that's insane, and some people will be like, anyway, I don't give a fuck, right? But then I thought about something. Isn't that how anything's made? Has there ever been in this world, when it comes to creation of a religion, to the creation of some technological advancement, to a story, you know, like some sort of book that was published and people didn't like it for a while? That's how it always is, because you're going against the grain. God came and went in the old form of Christianity, Muslim, and Jewish thought. What if another God comes? Or what if a new understanding of that God is seeking certain people? And what if some people are just pulling quietly through the things that come to them? The reason I have that kind of realization is, as I've been doing these videos, apart from the Forgotten series, the kind of people that have been commenting in the comment section, that all seem to be on the same wavelength of, I don't know what's going on. All of a sudden, I've heard some people call it, I'm getting downloads, I've heard it called. I've heard people say they found their own path, sorry, of enlightenment. They've discovered some truths, and it all kind of gets esoteric and weird. When we start talking about, like, oh, you know, dimensions, or realms of mind, or, you know, all this, whatever this kind of weird stuff is. On the outside, it sounds schizophrenic and strange, but amongst us, the people like me and the people that will be hopefully commenting in the comment section, it's like we're getting something. And it, like, in our own way, we understand it through ourselves, but when we each other talk, we're like, huh, is this a different version of that? Is this something to add to mine? Are we all figuring something out? Is there different aspects to this all? Why does this guy have a different interpretation of what the world is compared to that guy? What does this all mean? And so even in this little community of like a few people in this, on this channel, I guess, we've all come to this realization that there's something going on. And I always give the overall theme of, maybe God didn't just stop talking to people after the New Testament was written down. Like, yeah, that's it, and we're just waiting. Like, what if it's not that? What if the communion has happened and always will happen, and we just got hung up on one idealism, when in fact it's evolution of growth of man's mind? What if that vessel has come and gone? Or what if it's become corrupted? What if there's a new thing? Because all of a sudden God, talked to, at least we're talking like Western idea of God, talk to the Jews and say, here's my shit, I want you to do this and that, and you're my people. And all of a sudden he's like, okay, cool. I'm going to send Christ down. That's going to be me. And we're going to create a new kingdom because they're getting hung up on some shit. And this is not working. And then Christ comes, and all of a sudden most of the Jews are like, well, still fuck him. That wasn't really God. As if God's like, oh, that's cool. I don't mind. Most of my people don't believe me. I have new people now. And they are going to be the ones that believe me. And I guess you're screwed, unless you have liturgy of the scripture and all this shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. It's just like, no, he keeps coming back and trying to give you the goddamn story again. He is in whoever. I don't know. What if that's what it's about? What if there's more prophets in this world than we thought? Most of them go by the wayside. That's the idea that I keep in mind when I do my own exploration of this. And when someone comments on these videos, I treat them like another sage, or I treat them like a prophet coming to me in some sense. Like, what do you have? In your experience, what are the things that have led you to your thoughts and in your belief system? That's all I'm doing, just like trying to figure out what each of us has, so I can kind of, I always think of it like we're all in the desert like Moses, and we're all kind of lost in a sense. Like, we're not lost, but we are. It's cathartic, right? We're finding ourselves, but sometimes we meet up in these oases. We meet up in these caravan kind of, because that's how they did it when they would go through the deserts. They would have way stations in each oasis, so we can stop there and let our camels and horses drink the water, and we do too, get a little bit of shade from the few trees, and then we go back out into the great journey of that desert. I think of this channel as hopefully inviting people to come to this way place, and we can gather our thoughts together, and then we can go back on our journey again and know that we'll meet them in the next one. That's kind of how I'm choosing to see this journey of mine, and the comments that I get from other people about their personal journeys and their personal belief systems, and what led to it, and where they're going, and what they've discovered along the way. Because I think each one of us holds a fractal element of a major truth. That's why there's such thing as comparative mythology and comparative religion. It's all just, they're all broken pieces. Like the mythologies say, the God is broken into fragments and thrown into the dark abyss to be reborn again in the world of the light. That's what we all have. That's what our religions and our cultures and all of that's what it is. We're trying to seek union again. Why do you think people in the modern era are so hell-bent, I guess, on creating a one world, a one thought, a one mythology, a one religion, a one everything? We're trying to seek union again, to realize this is a one place. We've just been fragmented so much, it's seemingly difficult to find union. But then again, I could be wrong. I'm not saying all that and going, yep, and that's it, so you better fucking believe it. I don't know. I might be wrong on that. And you might think I'm wrong, and that's totally fine. We can go down any road we want, as long as you remember to come back every once in a while. Oh, well, there's that. Last update, in the middle of Parsifal, we took a 2-day break because work's been so hell. And I've been just everywhere. But the story is very good. I really, really highly recommend reading Parsifal. Here's a good one. I would say this is a good place to begin, and that's a Penguin classic, because it really simplifies it in a sense. And Wolfram von Eschenbach, I'm going to assume that's how you pronounce it, and it's Parsifal. It's a good read. Go to thriftbooks.com, and you could probably find it for under $5 used. Just give it a read, man. It's very good. It's right in the back. It says, an epic tale of spiritual education and development. And that's it. The Parsifal of Wolfram von Eschenbach, around 1195 to 1225 CE, or whatever, AD. One of the world's greatest narrative poems, is the recreation and completion of the story of the Holy Grail that was left unfinished by its initiator, and that's this name that I tried saying last time, Sheraton de Troyes, don't know if that's how you say it, set against alternating backdrops of forbidden landscape and dazzling courtly ritual. Parsifal's career, which culminates in a temple of the Grail, symbolizes chivalric life at its height, in which the demand of God and of the world are brought together in a single ethico-religious principle. And it's translated by A.T. Hetto, which is the same guy who translated, if I'm not mistaken, my reading of Tristan, I believe. Was it Tristan by Godfrey von Strasberg? Yes, A.T. Hetto. I don't know who he is, but he's doing a damn good job of what he does. And it's kind of fun reading Germanic ideas of... I know English people are Germanic, but it's cool getting it from more of a German perspective. I really suggest you read it because it might open up your idea of your relationship with the Grail. You know, the vessel that held the blood of Christ and all the representation of that. And at the same time, the Celtic idea of the cauldron of the plenty. It's very interesting. Very interesting. It's a very good read. And I've heard it mentioned this is a very esoteric book, but it's all secret. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's there, but you really got to dive into it to unravel some of the higher things about it. Good ass read. I highly recommend it. I'm like halfway through and I'm already like, this is great. It'll just be kind of tough for you to get your head around the names, the places, the geography, and remembering like this is the king who's fighting that guy and this person joined him. And then all of a sudden, like a couple chapters later, you're supposed to remember that. It's just, it can be very jarring, but I'm sure you take enough notes, you'll figure it out. But, so that's kind of our goal. We continue to read, we continue to grow, and we continue to keep trying. Some days it's easy, some days it's incredibly difficult, but that doesn't mean we're going to stop. There is no reason of stopping. Sometimes the road gets very difficult, and you just want to give up and go back to the easy life. Like, I don't really want to do this. You know what? Let me just try getting into sports again. Or let me just try getting into whatever it was that you found in the world. And you keep telling yourself that, but sometimes you can't give up. You've got to keep going the journey. It's going to get more and more isolating. It's going to get more and more difficult, but it becomes more and more richer in a sense of the gain gets higher and higher and higher until you start coming up with ideas that blow your own fucking mind. You're like, holy shit, you know, and I need to write this down or whatever. Anyway, feel free to make any comments about certain things that maybe you feel, I don't know, that maybe this is invoked in you, or just something you just want to get out there, because I'm all about fucking reading people's shit, man. I love it. I don't care who it is, when it is, why it is. Just put it down there and maybe try to teach me something. That's the whole point of the comment section, at least for me, is like, try to teach me something. Give me some truth. You know what I mean? Give me some fucking truth. And if you feel it. If not, I can give you my email and you can tell me in private. I don't give a shit. The cooler the better, man. The cooler the better. Anyway, I'll see you next time.